I'm Dana Denha, and you're watching FYI. Every summer, kids around the area show off their skills, life lessons, and diligent care of animals at the Washtenaw County Farm Council grounds. Due to the pandemic, the county's 4-H youth show was not able to take place in person this year. Experience the show from years past. Next.
For over a century, 4-H has been in the business of molding youngsters into responsible adults.
4-H's stand for Head, Heart, Hands, and Health. Head is the idea that you can learn more and be a clear thinker. Heart is that you care for people. Hands are that you use your hands to do service for other people. And then better living so that you can take care of yourself so that you can do all of those other things and live a good, healthy life.
Being in 4-H made me a very hard worker. It made me kind of accountable for what I was responsible for. You know, every single day I'd get up in the morning, I'd get my goats and my lambs, I'd take them on walks and I'd exercise them, and then as soon as I was done with that, I'd get my horse out, I'd ride my horse, and then I'd do it all over again that evening.
The culmination of a year in 4-H ends with a week-long show run by the 5 to 19-year-olds that make up the club.
It's a nice way to showcase the work, showcase the projects, showcase crafts, showcase animals that they have been working with and training, because you don't just have a pig in the barn, but you go out and you work with the pig, so the pig gets to know you.
We're unique because we're all about the youth. They get to show off all of their hard work that they've had on either their livestock or their still projects.
We have an animal decorator class today where bring your animal in and dress them up in some way, and the kids dress up. The kids dress up as an animal and the animal dresses up as a person. That's what 4-H is all about, working together and building those skills.
The City of Ann Arbor, Downtown Development Authority, and the University of Michigan are working together to keep residents, employees, and visitors of the downtown safe by asking everyone to follow some simple protocols.
Many downtown Ann Arbor merchants and restaurants have enjoyed some relief from the COVID-19 business impacts, due in part to the city's decision to close several streets to vehicle traffic Fridays through Sundays. City officials are reminding patrons that the closures will be cut short from the original August 23rd end date unless masks are worn and a distance of at least 6 feet is maintained. The city's expectations are consistent with other protocols being set in the community. The University of Michigan has announced that all faculty, staff, students, and visitors are being required to wear a face covering everywhere on campus, indoors and outdoors, and inside U of M buses. The Ann Arbor Public Schools also share the city's emphasis and the importance of wearing a mask. Keep everyone safe and your favorite places open and operating. Wear a mask, save a life.
Ann Arbor was once a model for communities to turn to when it came to guidelines of how recycling can be done right. Now the city and Recycle Ann Arbor are bringing that pride back to the community with the revitalization of the Materials Recovery Facility, or MRF. Joining me is Director of Strategy for Recycle Ann Arbor, Bryan Weinert. Welcome to the show, Bryan.
Hey, thanks.
Can you tell me what is currently happening with the MRF? Are we still just using that as sort of like a drop-off for recyclables?
Yep. So at this point, it is still just kind of a transfer, a material transfer. So the individual collection trucks drop their loads at the Materials Recovery Facility, Platt Road on the city, old city landfill property, drop the material on the floor. We then reload it into much larger trucks. And so we're probably getting 5 to 6 recycling truckloads into a larger semi-truck. And then those materials are still being shipped down to Cincinnati, Ohio for processing. But within the next couple weeks, kind of the phase 1 transition will be taking place when we'll instead be sending our, again, that same system, but sending the materials to Southfield, Michigan, about 40 miles away instead of 240 miles away to Cincinnati. So just that in itself is a big step forward. We'll be much more local in where recyclables will be going in this kind of interim year while construction takes place to redevelop, to remove old equipment and redevelop and install new equipment at the city's Materials Recovery Facility. So we're now looking at about a July 2021 target date to have the MRF, as we call it, Material Recovery Facility, permanently reopened for business to serve not only the city of Ann Arbor, but also surrounding communities, private haulers, and institutions that might want to use the facility.
I was actually shocked by how quick the turnaround was. I wasn't expecting the MRF to be sort of like that deadline of next a year from now.
Yeah, it's very impressive. We're working with a company that specializes in MRF installations. They're called MachineX, and they've done MRF installations all over the United States and Canada, and they are very good at it. They do a lot of work, design work up front, and when they finally get to the site, they are ready to get to work. And so we are very confident that by July of next year, we will be open for business.
Wow,
which
that'll
is
be
very
a huge
exciting, because
change.
it will have been about 5 years since the city was forced to close down the MRF in 2016.
It's amazing to me that it's actually been that long that it's been closed. Why was the city so adamant? Like, why did Recycling Ann Arbor and the city of Ann Arbor want to come together and bring this MRF back? Why is it so important to have the MRF here?
Yeah, control is a big part of it, that we control where our materials go, that we sort and process. And we can more easily kind of track where those materials are going and assure people that they are being used and made as a feedstock to make new products. Just the practicality of a local processor that saves us those trucking costs to more distant facilities. Even making that trip to Southfield, there's another whole infrastructure that's needed to do that, and fairly substantial costs in that extra double handling and that extra double set of shipments to get the materials further processed down the road. Mm-hmm. So it's just kind of from a greenhouse gas perspective, environmental point of view, as well as from a pure economic point of view, it makes sense. And then this idea of being able to control our own destiny and to create local jobs, local infrastructure, local economic development. Another big reason why we would want to keep processing local if possible. And the other thing it does is, frankly, it brings down the price of recycling for the city and for surrounding communities and private haulers, that further incentivizes them to get their materials recycled.
Yeah,
and get the highest and best use.
One thing people might be thinking about, because you're talking a lot about economic growth for Ann Arbor and how this is going to help economically, but I think like another thing that people might be thinking about is the price tag to make the MRF feasible again. But yes, that will essentially sort of pay for itself in the end, right? Yeah,
that's the idea. And the other kind of interesting dynamic here is that Recycle Ann Arbor has put up the capital, which ends up being about $6 million to upgrade this facility. So it's not city public funds that are going into the redevelopment of this facility. Now, we'll recoup that capital over the 10-year life of the contract, but we're putting up the money. We went out and found the financing.
You were able to get grants too for the money, right?
Yes, and we did also get an $800,000 grant from the state of Michigan for this project. They also believe that it's critical to establish additional recycling infrastructure, especially in Southeast Michigan, where we still don't have enough capacity to meet the demand. So when that happens, communities and private haulers either don't recycle, or recycling becomes a lot more expensive because they got to ship it to even far more distant facilities to get it processed. So the state saw it in its interest to create more infrastructure for recycling.
Yeah, I think before this, I think even once the MRF sort of, went away, and then we started sending our recycling to other places, I think people were also questioning what's happening to the recycling, because we don't really see it, I mean, I've talked to you before. I knew you guys were sending it to Cincinnati, but I think there's also this, like, if you can't see it, is it real sort of mentality about it?
Yep, I think that is very true, and it's understandable. And there have been cases of communities that have either publicly decided they can no longer afford to do recycling and are now sending, or did for at least a period of time, send their recyclables to a landfill or incinerator. And there have also been situations where private operators have been caught landfilling materials instead of processing them as they said that they were doing. And so, people are already geared towards cynicism, I think, about a lot of things in life. And so this can just be kind of one more piece of evidence. See what happens here? See, this stuff doesn't really get recycled. Yeah. And they have a couple, cherry-picked examples that can basically document that. And then to be able to say, see, it's not worth it. It's not really happening. And just want to reassure your listeners, viewers, that that has never been the case in Ann Arbor. Even when markets have been as depressed as they have ever been, we have moved material. And I think that's a testament to Recycling Arbor, testament to the city of Ann Arbor, and to our partners that we've worked with, most recently Rumpke Waste and Recycling out of Ohio, that have done a wonderful job in keeping materials moving in all kinds of market conditions and in all kinds of circumstances. So I think in the neighborhood of about 98% of the recyclables that we're sending to Cincinnati are marketed regionally. So only about 2% goes to international markets, which also raises concerns about, what are the conditions that are happening? Is it really getting recycled in foreign countries? In our case, the vast majority of it is actually being reprocessed right here in the Midwest region, also then helping to create jobs and to sustainably and economically, re-enter those materials into the marketplace, into manufacturing.
All right. Well, Bryan, we're going to take a short break and we'll be back and we'll talk about more about what the MRF is going to be doing for us. Stay tuned. I'm back with Bryan Weinert with Recycle Ann Arbor, and he's talking about what Recycle Ann Arbor's been doing recently. There's a lot of big news going on, and we're all so excited about having the MRF reopening a year from now. And the MRF is going to be bigger, sort of better than ever, because you're actually putting into effect the city's idea of going carbon neutral by 2013, right? When you're rebuilding or revitalizing the MRF.
Yep. The facility was fairly worn out even before it was forced to close down. It was originally open for business in 1995, so it's 25 years old this year. So a lot of the components were already were wearing down in any case, even before the city was forced to shut it down. So we will have, renewed and more sophisticated processing equipment in place as part of the upgrade. Hopefully meaning that even a smaller percentage of material kind of makes it through the system without being recycled, because that does happen inevitably. When you think of a system that is a combination of mechanical and manual separation, there are materials that just don't get picked through the system, as well as contaminants that should never have been in the system in the first place. So we're hoping and confident that we can get to about a 10% what's called residue rate. So 10% of what comes in does not go out as product. And a good share of that, 3/4 or more of that, is material that should never have entered the recycling stream in the first place. Largely because people still adopt this idea of wishful recycling, that maybe somebody can use this old hose, right? Or pick your item in your household. I know it's not really part of the curbside program, but maybe if I put it in, they'll pull it out and it can be reused. And more often than not, it ends up being a problem. Not helpful. So that's the reality. But the good news is 90% plus does end up getting recovered and sent then to markets for recovery. This has also allowed us to kind of rethink where materials are going, what kind of products will be made from those. As a local environmental nonprofit, we want to shout it from the rooftops where the materials are going, what products are being made from these materials, so the public not only is reassured that it's truly being recycled, but can seek out those products themselves in their own purchasing. Because recycling, of course, only works if people are buying products on the back end made with recycled content. You know, we could have the most sophisticated collection and processing systems in the world, but if no one wants it, there's no demand to turn it into a new product.
Yeah.
No one's buying that new product. The system falls apart.
Yeah,
so
I mean, it essentially becomes garbage then. So.
And it's just, yes, exactly.
So why don't you tell me about glass recycling? Because this is sort of a big deal now, because we've heard a lot about in the past that glass wasn't actually getting recycled. And then when you guys moved to Cincinnati, you sort of made sure the glass was getting recycled. Yeah. But now the new MRF is making glass into fiberglass.
Right. Yeah. So the good news is, as soon as we started to take materials to Rumpke, one of their innovative elements is that they have a separate glass processing plant in Dayton. So they do separation out of Cincinnati and then transfer the sorted glass to a glass beneficiation plant in Dayton, just up the road, where it is further sorted and crushed and then sent to fiberglass and glass container plants to be made into new glass bottles and jars. So it's a true upcycling of glass, which is a very recyclable commodity. It also creates all kinds of problems, obviously, as it breaks and it gets embedded into paper, into plastics, into other materials. So some programs have decided, not even to take glass because it's just kind of a hassle product. It leads to contamination. We've done the opposite and said, let's add value to that glass. And you might think, I would have otherwise thought that glass, as a packaging medium, maybe a couple % of the recycling stream now. We do periodic waste or material audits of the inbound stream of materials, and it's still about 15% of Ann Arbor's recyclables by weight is glass, bottles and jars. So it's a significant percentage of the material stream. So it is
interesting because
recovered.
You think like when you shop now, a lot of stuff that was once in glass is now in plastic. So I'm surprised that percentage is that high.
Isn't that interesting? Yes. Yeah. So it is, and it's infinitely recyclable as well. Some other products over time lose paper with fiber. Even plastics kind of degrade over time. Glass doesn't have that feature. It can be infinitely recycled. So it's very, very recyclable. And so we're just so pleased that Rumpke has made that commitment, and now we can continue to partner with Rumpke going forward.
That's amazing. So when we talk about the new MRF, we're going at this with recycle mentality, because you're sort of taking some equipment that already exists there and you're refurbishing and bringing new equipment in as well.
Correct. Yep. Although I would say the majority of equipment is going to be removed and scrapped. It's just too old and worn out.
Well, and it's been sitting there, yeah.
And it's been sitting there unused for years. But we're reusing what we can, and we're reusing the building itself.
So that's not going to be a tear down. That's going to
we're using that, and again, we'll do some upgrades to it, but it's pretty much the building as is. There's a lot of components there that are still very usable. The baler, which is kind of the centerpiece of the MRF, most products end up getting baled in order to compact materials and make it easier to ship to end markets. That is I think only about 5 years old. So we'll be continuing to use that for years to come. So that's a critical piece of infrastructure that will continue to be used at the Ann Arbor facility going forward.
And are we going to go back to, where we can tour the MRF and get our education about recycling and stuff from there?
We sure are hoping to do that. That won't be happening immediately, but we really see that as a key component to this. When the MRF was open, we had thousands of visitors actually per year. A lot of the Ann Arbor school curriculum programs came through the MRF. We had community groups, Boy Scout, Girl Scout groups, adult groups coming through. So we want to reimagine that going forward, because as you said earlier, nothing beats viewing it, to see it happen.
And it's so neat to watch the MRF. Like back 4 years ago when I was able to go into the MRF and see that process, I just thought it was really fascinating to be able to see it.
It is, and it's very educational for people, and I think to also just experience the scale of the size of the piles and of the impact this has, and you consider that what you're just seeing in a given day would otherwise just be thrown into a landfill to be forever wasted, and you're instead seeing this amazing process by which this pile of materials is transformed into new products. It really is quite remarkable. And I think and for a lot of people, it something clicks, and their commitment to recycling is enhanced because of that visual experience.
Totally. I completely agree with you. Before we go, Bryan, do you want to talk about maybe what you're so excited about to have bringing them back home?
Oh, gosh. Again, I think that idea of local control, community access to the facility to be able to see it, as we've talked about, for themselves. The fact that we as a environmental nonprofit will be seeking out the very best end markets for those products. We're going to be creating 20+ local union jobs as part of this endeavor. We'll be saving tremendous amounts of greenhouse gas. We'll be saving the city between $250,000 million a year, depending on the overall throughput through the facility, which basically frees up money for the city to use on other waste recovery initiatives. So, that's the downside when money aren't spent wisely, or just more money has to be spent than you anticipated. It doesn't leave money for other projects and initiatives. Because of the savings now taking place with the city reinventing its facility once again, there'll be more resources to use for other programs and services.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much for being a guest on the show, Bryan.
Yeah, you betcha.
For more on this and other programs, visit a2gov.org/CTN. Visit youtube.com/CTN Ann Arbor to see all that we have to offer, and remember to like, comment, and share. Thanks for watching, and tune in next time. FYI.